What if I told you that this viral TikTok trend, Danish Deception, has some hidden gems in there that could help you achieve your goal? Hi, my name is Prudence, and welcome to my channel. I'm also known as the Everyday Leader, and I am a success coach, and I help my clients achieve those heart-centered goals with clarity, strategy, and a plan, and holding them accountable so that they can achieve it in 90 days without distress. I'm also an author of two amazing books, The Everyday Leader, Becoming the Best Version of Yourself Daily, and A Grateful Heart, a 12-week gratitude journal. These two books are amazing and they could support you in your journey of personal development, and they could both be found on Amazon. I'm also a speaker, and on this channel, you would hear everything and see all things related to personal development because that's my passion. So when this TikTok trend became viral and I saw one or two videos about this Danish deception, and I went into the rabbit hole finding the original series. And listen, this video is not going to give you all the details ball by ball because there are tons of videos that's already doing the same. But I'll give you some highlights and lowlights. But in a nutshell, this Nigerian American girl, I think she's first generation Nigerian. She was hoodwinked, bamboozled, deceived by this Danish guy. Listen, I think, don't quote me, the videos will give you the right figures, but I think he scammed in herself, including her family and friends, like around or over 300,000 US dollars. Listen, it's a 25-part series, and each video is like about 7 to 10 minutes long. I did not have the capacity to listen to that at the speed of one. I listened to it at two. If I could have listened to it faster, I would have trust and believe. And I was listening to it during laundry, doing the dishes, cooking, like, passive. I was listening it passively while doing other tasks. So I may have missed some things, but in what I would have heard, and also listening to the reaction videos on TikTok, on YouTube, on Facebook. Listen, this thing has gone viral on all platforms. I realized that a lot of the lessons and things that I was thinking that she could have done differently. I'm like, these are some of the same things that I tell my clients in supporting them achieving their goals. So I'm like, you know what? Let me share my perspective as a life coach with a background in psychology and share some of my thoughts and use it as teachable moments to support you in achieving your goals. So it's an interesting spin, right? But listen, I have my notes. Yeah, right here. Grab your pen, grab your paper. I actually call this Danish deception Danish delusion because there were a lot of things that were well within her control and could have been avoided. So let me share my perspective. Again, I have my notes because I do not want to miss a beat. And as usual, share your comments. I read every single comment. I comment on every single comment. So let me know your thoughts on what I've been sharing and your perspective on it. Yeah. So the first thing that I would have noticed with the young lady, her name I think is Onyeka. The first lesson as it relates to how to achieve your goals, the first step, is that you need to have a vision for your life. Have a vision for your life. A life that you want, and most importantly, grounded in values. And those values must have depth. I'm not being judgmental, right? So this is my assessment and my views, and it may come across judgmental, but I'm just sharing based on what Onika shared, right? And as she spoke, everything seemed very superficial and very surface level. If you have a vision for yourself, what you want, and what you want is grounded in values and values that have depth, then you create a proper foundation for yourself that cannot be easily moved. So, in goal setting, in goal achievement, if you are not tied and tethered to your values, then anything will shift you away from achieving the goals and living the life that you want and that you deserve. And as she was speaking, I'm like, who is Onyeka? It's like the identity, sorry, seems to be mixed and muddled everything just seems superficial and want to be like somebody else. I didn't get a true representation of the core of Onyeka. It just seemed, as I mentioned, and I'm saying this over and over again, it seemed very superficial. And that's one thing when I sit with my clients, we get deep on what is actually important to you. What are you willing to stand up for? And that's the importance of values, right? Values keep us grounded. It helps us, and I have a note here that I want to ensure I read word for word. Values are important because it helps you get to know who you are, what you want, and what you stand for. It helps you to speak up. Yeah? So your values is your agenda. It's your life. Like, I think she needs to create a value vault, like do some soul searching because, values are hard for us to articulate. It only comes out when we actually take some intentional time and working with a coach, a counselor, psychologist helps you understand your values. And that's the importance of working with people. But yeah, everything just felt so superficial. And your values and your vision represents your agenda. And everybody has an agenda. What is an agenda? The intention, the purpose, the reason why you do what you do. It seemed as if Mr. Danish, he had an agenda and he was clear about what he wanted. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention this. He was also a gambling addict. Yeah? So he knew what was important to him at that particular period of time because everything he did was in alignment with his values, his vision, what he wanted. Little topsy-turvy, but for us as a woman, we need to have that clear vision, know what we want so we could stand our ground and ensure that all our steps, the decisions we make are aligned to your vision and to your values. And with your vision and your values, it helps you to determine and craft your goals. It gives your goals depth, it gives your goals shape. Yeah, once you are clear on your vision and your values. And that's so important in goal creation and goal execution. Another one, so I kind of spoke about two in one, their vision and values. Another one that I want to highlight is you need to create and communicate boundaries. Listen, they call me the boundary boss for a reason. I actually do master classes on how to create, communicate, curate boundaries. And it seemed as if Onyeka didn't really have boundaries, or let me rephrase it. She had very porous boundaries, boundaries that were almost useless. So one of them being the giving of the money. In her gut, she knew that something fell off before she came to the realization that he was this recovering gambling addict, or he had a past with it or whatever. He was clearly still doing it. Um, in her heart, she felt that something was wrong, something wasn't sitting right. She felt weird at one point, where to ask him back for the money. I'm like, sis, shouldn't even reach to that point. Like, what are you talking about? And then I'm like, she doesn't have proper boundaries. Now, most of the times people believe that boundaries are about blocking off people and, Chinese walls, right? But boundaries to me are like gates, what we allow to enter, what we allow to exit. And boundaries are so important because it indicates to people how we should be treated. When you think about it from like with children test us, adults do the same. So the Danish, oh, by the way, and he lied about being a royal Olympian. Anyway, I digress. As things pop up, it's popping up. But anyway, where was I? Yes, boundaries. So boundaries show people how we should be treated. We actually teach them, right? And I said, children test us, adults do the same. So the mere fact that he tried once with asking him money and he realized how easy he was getting it, and then he kind of gaslighted her in some parts as well, and she gave into it because the psychologist in me was saying, like, I'm seeing some narcissistic tendencies in him, and then for her, I was seeing some histrionic type behaviors. Um, yeah. So those kind of personality traits drove some of them to act the way they acted, but without proper boundaries and sitting with a professional to help you gain clarity, if you're struggling to, on what you should have as boundaries, and how to say what your boundaries are. So that's the communication, and how to continue to refine them. So that's the curating of your boundaries. Sis, them boundaries will out the door. Boundaries are not only for others, it's also for ourselves. I always tell my clients with your goals, you need to create boundaries to protect the goal, to protect the purpose. Boundaries help you create a system so that you could thrive in personally. This is not the boundaries for others, the boundaries for yourself. Some boundaries look like habits, what you are willing to do every morning, and you set aside time to do it. Nobody should cross this boundary. This is my time with me. This is my time to do this. This is a boundary that I have set for self-care. So boundaries is not only for others, it's also for you. And yeah, Oneka's boundaries were quite porous. And she struggled with how to say no, when and how to say no, which is an indicator of poor boundaries. When you want to say no, this is a tip, right? Just in general. You have to be clear, you have to be concise, and you need to be nice. Yeah. There are some instances the niceness goes out the door, but as a general rule of thumb, be clear, be concise, be nice, do not give any explanation. That's where the conciseness comes in. And I have this tool called the Say No checklist that helps you to know and recognize when you should say no and what you should say no to and how you should say it. It's an amazing tool. It's a tool that I give my clients complimentary, but I also have it available at a nominal cost. You would see it in the description below, or I think it's in my channel description. Anyway, another one with setting goals, with creating your vision, with all things goal creation and goal execution. A rule of thumb for life. Research before you trust. Research before you trust. And going back to what I blurted out earlier, that this guy from probably the second or third encounter mentioned that he was in the Olympics. He won a medal. His family is from a royal, whatever, they're part of royalty. But in my mind, if somebody tells me those two very important factors, I would be like, okay, if you're royalty, you're an Olympian, why are you asking me for money though? But anyway, poor boundaries. But Google in 2023 was and still is very much available. Although he told us to go to the site and you would see the names. People create websites and landing pages every minute. Google is free. Be resourceful. Verify before you internalize. There's this scripture, I can't remember it offhand in terms of the exact scripture, but it says, my people perish for a lack of knowledge. Why in this day and age we are taking 100% of what someone is saying? Do your research. Same thing I tell my clients with goal setting. Listen, we are living in the information age, and information is at our fingertips. You can look and see who have been doing what you want to do before. There's nothing new under the sun. Use information as a leverage to take you to the next level. Use information to finesse your work. Use it to enhance yourself. Why are we moving without researching? Research before you trust. Yeah, my sis. Although she acknowledged that in retrospect, and what I appreciate about her is her vulnerability, right? She didn't need to share this embarrassing story with us. And in it, everybody had the opportunity to point fingers and to share what they have to share, and but she acknowledged that this was a major faux pas. She could have definitely do her research. And this is an interesting one. When we are on our journey to in personal development, because personal development is a journey, and the things that we attain are milestones along that journey. And in the journey of goal setting, goal execution, our default is to compare. Our default is to compare. And there's a saying that goes, comparison is a canker to the soul. And in looking at the whole Danish deception, which I call the Danish delusion, when I look at her social media pages, you would think that all is well. Even if you scroll to the timeline with when these incidents were happening, 2021 to 2023, I think she was only officially divorced earlier in this month, November. You would think that all is well. And that's a lesson for us all that what I want to say, I won't say. But it's a lesson to show us that do not compare what you see on social media is just through filtered lens, one. And in our goal execution and goal attainment journey, do not compare your day one to someone's, or your beginning rather, to someone's very filtered middle. Don't do that. When I, as a coach, and every week I meet with my clients, and sometimes they share feedback that, this person is doing that and they feel so, dejected, they feel a little depressed or whatever. And I have to stop them. Do not compare your beginning to someone's very filtered middle. Your day one is somebody else's day 30 and vice versa. We are all on separate journeys. Might be similar, but we're on separate journeys. Do not let anyone's beginning or end, apparent end, be the benchmark for you. And when I say benchmark, meaning a measure of comparison to the point where you feel demotivated. Do not do that. So those are the 5 lessons from a goal execution standpoint that, really popped to mind. Having a vision, having your values, having clear, solid, strong boundaries, right? That you create, you communicate, and you create, you continue to refine. Research before you trust. Research before you trust. And then don't compare. Don't compare. Yeah. So my analysis, my view is not only about what happened directly, but what were some of the effects that would have happened as well, right? From us looking from the outside in, like, what can we learn as well, right? So that whole comparison piece. Yeah. Now, a lot of people had some theories that, Onyeka, she was probably comparing herself to others and she wanted to live a certain lifestyle. But for us, when we were looking at her profile, we would have gotten a different impression. And the lesson in that is we are looking, when we're on social media, we are only seeing one perspective, and that perspective is very filtered. So don't feel badly and compare yourself to others, especially on social media, because it doesn't make sense. So I have these here listed as bonus tips. What stories are you telling yourself? Now, it ties to vision and it ties to values. And that is why I'm a strong advocate for affirmations, but positive ones that's grounded in my values. Because in looking at Onyeka, I felt so sorry and badly for her because I'm like, she is living in a state of delusion. So I'm like, what stories are she telling herself? Because people believe stories, including yourself. So you need to be intentional of what you are telling yourself. And that's why the word says, I think it's Romans 12:2, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Like, I'm like, sis need to sit down with her thoughts and evaluate what is she telling herself and is it aligned to the vision and the deep values that she has for herself. Are her values even deep? Yeah, going back to the initial point, like how many points ago, right? Yeah. And this is a tip for us all. What are you telling yourself? What stories are you telling yourself? What stories are you believing? Because those stories, those internal conversations, they form neural paths that once you continue with that story, it strengthens over time. And then they dictate the things that you say and the things that you do. Because it starts in the mind. Yeah. And the last one is trends fade, but consistency stays. And this isn't really about the incident of the Danish deception, but the whole virality and the trend on it that we're all hopping on right now, right? And it's the same thing that applies to goals. Sometimes there are some concepts that's just trendy that we're just doing at a particular space and time, right? And trends, they start and they stop. But what really makes a difference in your life and for you to execute on your goals and to do it well is to do what works consistently, not to start and stop like a viral trend, but to be consistent, doing the little every day so that you could reap the abundant harvest of successfully achieving your goals. So this was my spin, my take on it. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that it was educational. I hope that you understand my take on it. And let me know in the comments, what are your thoughts? How can you see this applying to personal development? Yeah. And as usual, I would read and I will comment and reply to your comment. So thank you again for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, share, and comment, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.